At Cocktail Conversations, candid insights from startup founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders from around the globe.
Hi, I'm Jodi McDermott. I'm Vice President of Product Management at comScore. I oversee our digital analytics product line globally, which is a software as a service analytics platform. I'm also a board member of the Digital Analytics Association here. I spent a lot of time with different brands and different companies talking about how they use analytics in their business, as well as really understanding what the different vendor offerings are across the web. But I live and breathe analytics every day in my own life and working with the customers and products that comScore delivers. Top analytics. You really got to boil it down to what are the KPIs or key performance indicators that are going to drive a business. So it's understanding your business model and picking out those levers of what's actually going to move the business. Answering that question of, what is the metrics? What do the metrics need to be for us to hit 5 million in sales this year? For us to hit 50 million in sales this year? And how do we drive our marketing efforts, our product development efforts, optimization of our products to drive those key performance indicators? So that's going to be different for every business. So for some businesses, it's a ratio, it's a percentage. In others, it's a pure, cost per average sale or average transaction. So it really is incumbent on the team within that company to drill down and understand what is the underlying business model and what's going to really move the needle for us, and make sure you align your metrics behind that. If you measure everything, you won't have the focus that you need to really move the business forward. The biggest mistake I've really seen is wanting to track absolutely everything. So with any new business, especially if you're a startup, you're trying to crack the code of what is your business model. And so you really need to start with, what am I trying to learn? What is it that's going to be a sustainable revenue model for me long term? And then align the metrics and the points that you measure behind that. You always have to have a good, healthy understanding of what is happening in your business, volume-wise, metric-wise, just to understand the landscape. But it's narrowing in on what are those key performance indicators that are going to help me make more money, make me grow substantially greater than my competitors, and give me that edge, or we like to say blue ocean, against what other people are doing in the industry. So making sure you're not just measuring everything, but measuring what counts. There's a lot of different analytical tools out there, and it depends on what you're trying to do. So if you are a digital business, which many startups today have some sort of digital presence, you want to have an analytics system that is not going to lock you into one data schema or force you to think about your product or your business model in a very specific way. So an open environment to do that. At the same time, many companies start off with Google Analytics. It's cheap, shall we say free, depending on the volume of your business. And it's a great starting point. A lot of companies also use basic things like Excel. So when we look at companies that are on that maturity model from startup all the way through to enterprise, many of them are using Excel all the way along the way, because you can do a lot there. Even at the really high-end enterprises. And then you also see analytics being used, for me, I look at web analytics and especially digital analytics, and for comScore we have companies as small as, I won't give an actual size, but small organizations that are startups using comScore products and analytics tools, all the way up to very large enterprises such as, Microsoft and Verizon and very large organizations. So a lot of them are using a lot of the same tools, but when it comes to analytics, what are you trying to measure? So if it's digital, you need some way to collect that digital data and to analyze it. If it's transactional, you're probably using other systems in-house to do that, but you have to be able to bring the data together. And for startups, one of the easiest ways to do that is Excel. So acting, I think for any company, especially startups, it starts with asking that question. When I wore the practitioner hat, one of my favorite questions to ask back to people who would ask for a report was, well, what business decision are you going to make off this data? And so when it comes to acting, yes, there is a level of wanting to understand just the baseline of what's happening in a company, but that should be a really small portion of what's going on, checking the health check, if you will. It's about building that learning agenda and what you want to learn and what you need to understand of how your business model operates or how users interact with your products. And so it's laying that out and thinking about, okay, here's what the data is telling me. this is an important key performance indicator. What do I do on the marketing front, on the product development front, in order to change this KPI because it's going to drive revenue or it's going to mitigate cost? So tying it back to how you package your products, how you build your products, how usable they are, and how you market them and get them into the hands of the users that are actually going to drive revenue for your company. An interesting fact is that they say that about 92% of the world's data was actually generated over the last 2 to 3 years, which is pretty crazy. And it's really opened up a shift from how do you collect all of this data, because the proliferation of devices alone is generating a ton of data. I mean, the tablet was only introduced 3 years ago. So if you think about the creation of applications and all the data that spawns off of that for brands or even startups today that have a web presence, they have apps for a variety of different platforms. They're building mobile web. We have companies that we're working with that are deploying applications on Xbox, Roku, PlayStation, and they want to measure everything. And so, the way that we've seen it change the most is with being able to tie the user journey across all of those devices, as well as being able to work with so much data and make sense of it. So the changes that we've seen are the methodologies for how you actually look at analytics, that you've got to think about it across device, and then also making sure that you have systems in place to manage those very large volumes of data. So data can be a blessing and a curse. So it's the methodologies and the technologies to be able to support such a changing environment.